First of all, thanks everyone for coming to this presentation. It's the first presentation of the first day, so thanks for coming. A little bit about me, like you already know, I'm a French Canadian. I'm a software developer at Telco Bridges. I'm using Asterisk actually since 10 years. I've wrote the CLI filtering in Asterisk a while back. That was funded by the Google Summer of Code in 2009. I've did all the translation for the core sound and the extra sound for the sound packages in Asterisk. And this is my 9th AstriCon. So what is SIPP? SIPP is simply a traffic generator. So you can generate any SIPP flow. You can embed any SDP in that flow. You can see, you can stress your architecture. You can do a bunch of stuff. For example, you can validate the presence or absence of any SIP and SDP in the header or in the body of the SIP packet. You can stress test your architecture. Like maybe sometimes your provider gonna say, oh, it's not our fault, it's you did something wrong with my invite. So you can simulate what's gonna happen from the real world on your lab environment. So it's great. There's a bunch of problems sometimes with the SIP stack and the SDP stack. So you can validate if you're parsing from your both stack is valid or not. You can test, instead of plugging a phone and sending a register to your Asterisk, and after 10 minutes the user call you back, say, hey, it's not working, and stuff like that. You can already test it prior to deploy your phone on your production floors. One of the most amazing thing, I think, it's you can replicate any specific call flow. Today I'm gonna just cover the basic of a few call flows, but let's say you can get 2 re-invites and with 2 media description in the SDP and see if your negotiation and your response will be accepted. So you can do all this with SIPP. And all the SIPP configuration is defined in a XML format. Just before we start, in all my scenario, the phone A will call phone B. So the UEC, which is the client side, will be the phone A, and the phone B will be the server, which is the UES. But like you probably already know, Asterisk is a back-to-back user agent. This means when it's getting the first invite, it's going to generate a new invite on the other side. So the phone A is not talking directly to the phone B. It's passing through Asterisk, which is in the middle, the back-to-back. So it's going to just generate a new call, and when it's going to get the 100 trying from the phone B, it's going to generate on the other leg the 100 trying, and so on until the communication and the buy is sent. Just before we start to see a real example, in SIPP the vocabulary is called a scenario, so which means you're gonna generate a specific call flow for your particular need. And the syntax is quite simple. You send a specific packet. The SIP packet, it's plain text that I will cover later. And when you receive, you're going to receive, for example, a 200 OK. So you just say receive response 200, which is the numeric value. Or you can receive a specific method, which is ACK is not a response, it's a request. So for the first flow, for example, you're going to receive request invite because the first initial opening dialog, it's the invite. I know some implementation out there are not sending all the optionals value. So let's say right after the invite, some implementation will not send any 100 trying the 180 or the 183. So you can simply add an optional true in your scenario, which means that if the other side is not sending you back any 183, for example, that will not fail your scenario because that specific reception is optional. We can use variable in SIPP in the scenario. It's defined as bracket variable, and all those variables it can be substituted when you're calling the SIPP main argument, or if you don't provide any value for this variable, it's gonna simply use the default value. For example, I will not cover all those variables, but you have almost everything you need in SIPP to be able to generate, I would say, any call flow at all. I think the most important one is the latest one, the last underscore. And when you're getting the SIPP invite on the other side, maybe you want to just send the same via, the same from. So I put an asterisk there, but you can use last from, last via, last to, last almost anything, just to respond to the offer. So for the first example, I will cover the total basic call, which send an invite. The phone B will simply return a 100 trying, 180 ringing, then 200 OK, ACK, some RTP is gonna flow. I will send a buy and 200 OK. So I'm like blind because right now I don't see that screen on my laptop. But the syntax, it's simply a SIPP. You send the destination address and the destination port, minus P5061, which is the source port. The S is the service, which is commonly named as the call number. You specify your scenario file, like the UAC invite XML, and -1 it's for just one call. And so I'm starting Asterisk. I don't see quite well. After the what?
The one, number one, M1. Yeah, M1.
Give me a So, you see right now, the arrow is simply I'm sending. So in my scenario, I specify I'm gonna do like I just covered. So you see that I've received at the top, I've received my 100, 200, the hack. I did a pause of 30 seconds to simulate a conversation. Then it sent a buy and received the 200 OK. So in Asterisk, it just received a call. It did a playback TT monkeys, and it hung up. So the syntax, yes?
You know how you put a pause and then you send it buy?
Uh-huh.
Sometimes you get a buy from the other side before your timeout.
Yes.
Is there a way to say, then it throws an error? It says, oh, I got an accepted buy. Is there a way to say, if you get a buy earlier, just end the call?
You can define a reset and a buy, because right now the buy was from the other side. But when you're doing a pause, there's no way that you pause and wait for something. So in your particular need, maybe if you think the buy will come on the other side instead of the pause, maybe you should do a reset with the method buy. And that will be simply the opposite. Instead of the other side sending the buy, I will receive the buy on my side.
But I want to also send a buy if the other side didn't send the buy within like 60 seconds.
Don't know. I can take a look later, maybe offline, so we can find a solution for that. So the syntax that I just covered was that. So after SIPP ends, when it exits, you could use the variable $question mark, and that will tell you which was the state of all your scenario. So the two most important, I think, it's the 0 and 1. The 0 means that in my test I did just one call, so it passed, so it would return 0. Otherwise, let's say you're generating, I don't know, 10,000 calls, and you want to make sure all those 10,000 calls are successfully being processed by the scenario, that you should get a 0. If you get a 1, that means that at least one call failed. For my second example, I will simply send the same invite, which is an invalid invite, and Asterisk will return me a 488. So, whoops. You may ask why Asterisk returned me a 488. For example, in that specific invite, this is what looks a scenario file. In my media description audio at the bottom, I didn't specify any payload type, which means I sent an invite without any codec at all. In that particular need, since I provide an SDP, Asterisk returns simply a 488. And I don't see. And here, for example, I've said that my receive response 200, which means of course, that specific scenario file has been written to fail. So when I'm running that specific scenario, since I said on that line that I'm going to receive a response 200, which is not the case, that the SIPP main will return me 488. I've got a little problem here. SIPP can generate any RTP flow as well. I never particularly use that because I'm mainly involved at the SIPP stack and SDP stack. So this is not my day job to take care of the RTP itself. But for example, you can specify any PCAP file, and you simply call exec PCAP audio. That will, of course, that PCAP you can have a specific tone, so you can generate like a DTMF2 or 3 or whatever, and you will make sure that maybe on your other side the AAS maybe will record and detect it's a DTMF3 and do something with it. One of the most important thing, SIPP can validate the presence or absence of any header or value in an header or even in the SDP itself. The syntax that you should pay attention is the search in, and you have the HDR, which means header, and you can even specify which header are you looking in. In my example, I'm using the allow. Check it through means if it's not present, the test will fail. So in that example, I decided yes, it's a critical error. And the assign to 1, you assign it to the variable 1. So later in the scenario, you can specify bracket 1, bracket, and that will refer to that specific update value provided in the allow method. And for example, my previous example was for a request, but you can do that even on response. So when you're getting the 200 OK, you can look in header, and I specify a custom header that I'm using, the Clod. I decided to look for custom format, and the test will not fail if it doesn't find the custom format in my Clod header. You can define label as well. The define, it's exactly as a label in the dial plan in extension.conf. You simply define it as a label ID and a numeric value. And when you, for example, when you have a qualify equals yes in your SIPP.conf, it sends a periodic SIPP options. So maybe if you're on your scenario, you said, I will receive an invite, and because of that periodic time, you receive the option, but that your scenario will fail because you expect an invite and you finally got an option. So you could specify an optional true, and which means maybe or maybe not, when I will receive the options, next is like the jump. I'm gonna jump to label ID 5 that I just covered in that scenario. There's three types of limits in SIPP. You can specify with -r, and the r means the rate, which is the call per second. You can specify it with the L, the limit of simultaneous call, and the global limit, which means the total limit. So I would call it the global limit, like the master, because you could say a rate of 20 calls per second, but if you said my global limit is 5, it's gonna not generate 20 calls. It will simply generate 5 calls because your global limit said so. That example, I'm running out of time, so I will simply skip it. But in that specific scenario, I'm sending an update method to Asterisk. The method update is not supported in the chant SIPP in Asterisk 11. So I'm expecting to get a 200 OK on my update, which is not the case. So in my particular example, I will get a 501 not implemented because Asterisk didn't implement it yet. Just sending the SIPP without any SDP, it's useless. So SIPP could generate the SDP as well, and you have the content. You have the content length, and you can have the length directly, which is a variable, and that specific variable, what it does is for the SDP that you're gonna put right after, it's gonna automatically substitute the number of bytes to send in the SIPP header content length. Maybe just one warning about that particular stuff. You cannot use any tabulation when you define your SDP in your XML file, because in Wireshark, it's gonna give you an invalid line, and I know that some SIP stack out there, when they receive a tab, they go like crazy. So maybe make sure that in your SDP you have tabs, you have space, sorry. For example, this is the interesting SDP. So instead of counting the number of bytes, you simply use content length, and you define your SDP. You can define mini media description as well. It's gonna simply take the old SIP packet and gonna send it. Sorry. I don't know why it's... You can inject, you can use an injection file, sometimes you want to simply use particular value in your SIP flow. So, for example, you have a field 0, which is a variable, which is referred by, for example, Sarah in that injection file. So when you provide the injection file with minus NFT, it's going to put, of course, you can have multiple field 0, 1, 2, 3, as many as you want, and it will cover, it will be substituted by that. That could be really useful to call many numbers or provide a specific via or specific value that you're looking for. SIPP can support SIP TCP as well. You can use the minus T1, which is for simply bound on one socket for the SIP. SIPP can generate log as well. I usually use the minus trace error if a specific call flow is failing from, I'm expecting a re-invite and I've got an update, for example, it's going to automatically create a log file error that you can analyze quite later. And that log file is simply the old SIP packet that will be written to that log. And you should use the trace log as well, so you can have the error and the old logs of the SIP flow. It can generate, SIPP can take care of the old authentication as well. You simply use, it's like the variable authentication, but in fact, it's like a function. And you can pass many argument optional to that authentication, like authentication, username, ABC, and password something. And automatically, the username will be substituted by the minus lower s, the service, which is like the call number. And you can substitute a minus AP, which is the authentication password, to the main of SIPP. So, for example, many phones send a register. The PBX will return a 401 unauthorized with a challenge announced, and the phone will send back a register. So, this is the normal process for registering a phone. So by calling SIPP with a specific scenario file called register.xml, in fact, what it does, it's going to send a register with the authentication password foobar. So if it's successfully done, you will get a 200 OK. Otherwise, you will get a 403 forbidden. So for example, by running, I think I made the same mistake again. So right now I'm sending the register with my authentication password, and you see that I'm getting the 403 in the middle here, 403 forbidden, because when I provide the minus AP, I use FOFO, and the password is foobar. And my username is 12. So you see here, I've run the scenario, and I'm getting a 0 for the exit code. And you see here the registered SIPP12 because I provide the good password.
Clod, you've got exactly 1 minute, so...
Okay. I'm... Why? I had another example, which is I'm crashing Asterisk by sending a bunch of SIP message, but due to some technical problem, I went out of time. Maybe come see me offline for the demo. SIPP doesn't support T38, but there's another implementation that supports it. Some cool Wireshark filters that you can use. It's SIPP, SDP, and SIPP methods with your specific method. Some useful link. I don't know where I put that on because we all use Google. Maybe some question? Yes?
We have some Polycom on the version 3 that we think are sending the wrong passwords. We have some Polycom phones on version 3 that we think are sending incorrect passwords to our system. Would we be able to use this to sort of figure out what Polycom is sending to the phone system?
Maybe, I don't know all your architecture, but maybe just by doing a Wireshark capture, you could see on the register that your Polycom phone is sending. I don't see why you would need a SIPP for that, because SIPP is just the traffic generator itself. But what you're looking for is maybe just to see if the Polycom is sending the wrong password. So maybe a Wireshark capture would be much more time efficient instead of replicating something that you already know it's happening.
Right, I know that you've all got lots and lots of SIPP questions, but we've timed out, and it's morning refreshment time. So before we all dash off, can we just thank Clod in the usual way?